You are listening to the QSR Web Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm QSR Web and Pizza Marketplace editor Shelley Whitehead, and so glad you're here with us today. And you know, when it comes to QSR brands, Golden Chick stands out from the other chicken concepts with its laser focus on families as its primary customer and inclusion of less traditional offerings like fried catfish, fried okra, hot yeast rolls, and even dirty rice. Yes, it is indeed a Southerner at heart, but maybe more importantly to our audience is that as of late, it's a very popular Southerner. Just ahead, we'll turn the mic over to the brand's president and CEO, Mark Parmerlee, to find out what's behind the brand's latest growth spurt and who eats all that fried catfish anyway. And then, in the second half of today's show, we'll check in with Foodservice Packaging Institute President Lynn Dyer for the lowdown on their latest poll of members to find out which restaurant category has the lion's share of food packaging producers' attention these days. And it's perhaps not the segment you think it is. And also, she'll tell us what kinds of weird and wonderful options are emerging to help brands keep their sustainable packaging pledges as they move into the future. And that's all just ahead after this.
Are you a supplier or a brand working to elevate the customer experience? The Interactive Customer Experience Association connects brands, suppliers, agencies, and more who are working to create transcendent customer experiences. Let's work together to create a better customer experience ecosystem for us all. Join the ICX Association today at icxa.org.
And welcome to the podcast, Mark. How are you today?
Shelley, I'm doing great. How about you?
Pretty good. All right, let's just delve deeper into this interesting brand. Can we just start off first by you giving us a status check on the chick, so to speak? In other words, where is the brand store number wise, geographically, and how has your last year's performance been?
No, good. Well, good. We have 184 units and climbing. We have a very active pipeline. The brand started in '67 in Texas, but we're now in Oklahoma, and then we jumped to the Southeast, mostly because I have family there and I know those markets, particularly in South Carolina. So we're in South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and the performance has been great. We, sales wise, first half of last year we were flat to slightly down, and then we trended up during the last half of the year, and then this year we're up 4 to 5%. It's been a very good first quarter, and we think that will hold throughout the year. And our pipeline is great. We had a few stores slip at the end of 2018 for a variety of reasons, but it made for an active start to this year. So we anticipate a record year.
Well, that's fantastic. Any idea, Is it what you're doing? Is it the market? Is it a little bit of everything? Any idea what's bringing about your success this year?
Well, it's probably all the above. Texas is an attractive market. We're attracting people really from all over the country. But we've had, for ourselves, we've had a slow and steady approach. And I wasn't here in 1967, but I bought in at 1989. And we took a brand called Golden Fried Chicken that had very basic menu, bone-in fried chicken, tenders, and and a handful of sides. And we began the process of making it more contemporary. It became Golden Chick. Became Golden Chick. Most people think it was because we wanted to get fried out of the name. As it turned out, Golden Fried Chicken was generic, and so Golden Chick was as close as we could get to and get a federal registration. So, but in menu, in building design, marketing, we have slowly but surely kind of kept ramping up all these years and try to be a little better this year than the last.
Well, that's all you can do, really. I know Golden Chick is, of course, about the chicken, but also it's a lot more. And what kind of tickles me is the catfish on the menu. And I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about the inclusion of the catfish in particular, and really how it works with the rest of your menu, including those sides.
Yeah, we established when I came in a president's council made up of a few corporate folks and franchisees, and we really listen. I mean, I view them as free consultants, other than we pay for their travel, but and so the particular in some of the smaller communities, franchisees have mentioned that felt like we had some real opportunities, during Lent and even other periods that maybe the size of these markets, they didn't have an adequate fish house. And true to our nature, we don't do freezer to fryer, products. I mean, so we spec a high quality catfish, and we hand bread it in the store with a proprietary crust. And so anyway, we listened, we tried it. It became a success for Lent, and it became such a success that we carried it on, and now it's one of the core items. And it's really funny to me, but even in some of these smaller or medium-sized towns, we've been voted best catfish in that market, even though there may be a 50-year-old catfish house or a fish house that we're up against.
And that's a big thing, particularly in the South, isn't it? I mean, your catfish is something, it's like your chili recipe.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's great. And, because we have really high standards on what we select, it's American product, it's farm raised, it's no belly fat, and that on and on and on, I could tell you. So it's a little more pricey than what maybe the average quick serve meal would be within our segment. But I have found through the years people are willing to pay for quality, and in this case, often we will cook it to order. The rest of our products are not that way, but fish doesn't tend to have as long a holding period. And we have found people don't mind waiting. They get good, fresh, hot products. So anyway, it's all worked out really well.
Well, another thing that kind of intrigues me about this brand is its emphasis on family meals. Are they a major purchase among your customers? And if so, how do you market to the family as a customer?
Yeah, we weren't the ones to come up with this phrase, but the home meal replacement category is something we've done for quite a while. There's some things you can make at home, but frying chicken at home, or even our roast product, it's not real easy yet, particularly in the South. It's still a staple for Sunday dinners and more, and so our packaging, our menu, is all been geared around that we really call that our core customer. Now, not to the exclusion of the single diner, but when we do a promo, you'll typically have what we call a family bundle that'll come with the center of plate plus the side items, and we'll have that, and then we'll have it in a single version as well. And what we've found, I guess, just through the years, that people like to swing by and pick up some, and then come lay it out on the table. And we do a lot of research for a company of our size, and we found that mom first entered the workforce in greater numbers. Convenience was the key, and then over time, there maybe was a little guilt that mom wasn't providing the same meal experience. And so rather than opening a pizza box, or a bag of burgers, we can get a box of chicken. We've got salads. We've got a variety of healthy options. Can put that plated up, and you've got an entree. You've got side items. Can pour a glass of milk, and now all of a sudden you got a real family meal.
Yeah. So is that perhaps why the brand has so many sides? And I wonder what kind of challenges that presents as far as prep, presentation, and really even training.
Well, the good news is that we get credit for having the variety. And again, remember that we've been called the Walmart of chicken, so we really started in smaller towns. And so I think it was important that somebody be able to come to us and have a variety of items that they could come several times a week if necessary or they desired, and yet be able to have a different looking plate. So that's I guess that really became the start of that, is the variety piece of it. And we seem to get credit for that. The prep's not as a big of a deal, because typically we will prep those items before or after a rush.
Yeah.
So other than, there's a little labor associated to that prep. And even training, presentation, those things aren't a big issue. Certainly people have to be trained properly, but we've got, guidebooks, pictures, and other training materials that helps make sure that people stay on course. But gosh, Shelley, I would say the biggest challenge for us then becomes order accuracy. So, if you're a concept with one item, fries and a drink, it's not too hard to mess that up. But when you've got a variety of entrees to choose from, you've got a variety of side items, that can be a problem. And 70% of our business is through the drive-through, so there's nothing more frustrating, we know, than a customer getting home only to find out we left out a side or a roll or a sauce. And so we've taken steps. We'll double check an order, for example, and now this past year we added order confirmation boards at the drive-through.
Oh, is that right? Have you seen actual improvement with those, or is it too early to track?
I don't really have any hard data other than franchisees and even the company store folks saying, it helps, because sometimes background noise or other things, somebody may say one thing and somebody may hear something else, or we may have somebody who's distracted and they meant to say one thing but something else came out. So catching it at that point is important, and then we repeat the order nevertheless, and so those things help. It's not to say that we're perfect, but we feel like we're improving, and we feel like offering the variety, particularly having some healthy options these days, really gives us a competitive advantage.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts. I read that you all expect to open 25 stores this year, and I wonder how that compares with previous years and where you're headed geographically. Seems like a lot.
Well, sure. Starting around 2012, what we've seen on average double-digit count gain. So I mean, openings minus closings is a net change, and so that net change, pardon me, through the years has starting around then has averaged double digits, and we worked with the franchise community, and we put our money where our mouth was, and we did some re-imaging. We did some changes to the menu layout. We put it in a couple of stores. We involved the President's Council, and then in 2011 we rolled out our re-image. And I always say success begets success. So sales were up, and people were feeling really good about some of the menu items that we began to offer. And that momentum has just continued. Through it all, too, we upgraded the building. I mean, we spend more than probably the average, quick serve or even fast casual restaurant. We've got stone, we've got brick, we got a little taller ceilings, a little upgraded furniture package. So it's not rocket science. Good food, good service in an attractive environment that you keep clean, and people tend to like you.
It's nice to hear that, because it seems the restaurant industry has gotten really complex. So, but that's what it breaks down to, isn't it? As simple and as hard as that is.
Yeah. So, and I'm not sure I finished your question. 25 is a record year for us. We've had 20, 22, 20, over the past few years. And for a chain that's what now is 184, you can do the math. And so we're in the national publications, and we get named the fastest growing or one of the fastest growing in the chicken segment, because thankfully they go by a percentage. And so we certainly have competitors that are much bigger than us, but with our lower base and with our momentum and our success, certainly as a percentage, we've been demonstrating the very good steady growth too. And I think that part's important as well. I haven't been all that excited about growing so fast that we stub our toes, and then end up going backwards and having to fix things. So it's kind of one of the old cliche about the slow and steady wins the race.
Exactly. It seems that maybe the golden chick is something the chicken category wants to keep an eye out for. I have enjoyed talking to you and enjoyed getting to know more about this brand, and look forward to my next trip down south so I can swing by one and get a catfish sandwich. It sounds really good.
Well, that's great. And I know the guy that owns the joint, so please let me know, and I'll be happy to treat you. And we continue to view Golden Chick as our foundational brand, and through the years, we've added things. I'm not a real creative guy, so we have something called Golden Tree Restaurants, which is the parent for Golden Chick, and Jalapeno Tree, a full-service Mexican. And then we've also ventured into full-serve brick oven pizza, fireside pies, was started locally by a chef, and Texadelphia, Hef's Burgers, JC Burgers, and we about to start a taco operation. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy what I do and who I do it with. We've got a great franchise community, and so anyway, life is very good.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. Mark, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I know our listeners do as well.
Oh, great. Thank you, Shelley. I appreciate the interest. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye now. And please don't exit with the Golden Chick, because just ahead, we'll sit down with the director of the Foodservice Packaging Institute to talk about the top concerns around restaurant disposables at the moment.
The Interactive Customer Experience Association's mission is to connect B2C brands to technology that elevates the customer experience. Brands have access to resources, project help, news, and insights based around boosting their customer experience. Suppliers gain network opportunities to reach these brands and help them provide solutions to elevate their customer experience. Join today at icxa.org.
Right now, we are back and here with Foodservice Packaging Institute President Lynn Dyer to talk about both the blessing and sometimes the bane of most QSR operators, and that is the stuff you put your food in, the packaging. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Now, you all just wrapped up pretty recently your 20th annual State of the Industry report last month. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I guess packaging companies, some of the findings from that include that packaging companies are seeing the big growth area for them within food service is really coming from the fast casual arm of the limited service spectrum. Can you tell us a little about that?
Well, certainly the use of single-use food service packaging, whether you're talking about cups or takeout containers, those types of items, continue to grow as you see different types of market segments really try to latch on to additional sales opportunities. And certainly when you talk about things like fast casual, you start to see certainly growth in the fast casual market, but a lot of it is dependent on food service packaging. And then when you look kind of more holistically about additional sales opportunities, what we're finding is that they tend to be perhaps off-premise. So it might be catering opportunities, it might be delivery opportunities. Certainly in the QSR segment, traditionally roughly 70% of the meal items leave the store, whether it's been through carry-out or through the drive-through. But with the substantial growth we're seeing in terms of both, again, catering and delivery, those numbers are just going up and up. And I would say a lot of that is dependent on food service packaging.
And I imagine it's bringing into the realm even more demands on food service packagers. I'm wondering if I can take a small step back here first and ask you if you could maybe give us an idea of the types of food service packaging materials that are now available, because it really goes way beyond paper-based products, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the history of food service packaging, it's been around for over 100 years, and it certainly started out in paper, and that's really what it was predominantly made from. Then you started to see a bit of aluminum made, let's call it about 70 years ago or so, and then plastics really came onto the scene. And today, really, you see roughly split between paper and plastics. With aluminum having a smaller market share of the overall market share of food service packaging. But even within the paper and plastic segments, you see a lot of changes in differentiation these days. So on the paper side, for example, what we think of as paper is typically comes from trees. But what we're seeing more and more is other types of fiber materials. So it may not come from trees. It may come from things like bagasse, which is a byproduct of sugarcane, or it might come from wheat straw, or it might come from other types of fiber products. On the plastic side, right now what we have seen is traditionally there were, let's say it started off really as polystyrene was pretty much the dominant resin, but then you also then saw PET and polypropylene come into the marketplace, and then today you also have PLA, which is a corn-based plant-based material that you would find that's typically used because you want to have a compostable type packaging. But in that case, it's also a renewable material. So the interesting thing I would say is that you're seeing a lot of different new materials coming into the marketplace or combinations of the materials. So you might have a paper cup with a PLA coating. Again, that's a renewable material coming from corn essentially. So it's really fascinating to see the different types of materials being used right now and also the combinations of them.
Single-use products have really been identified by your members as leading the concerns of the food service brands they work with today. And I'm wondering, what are your members hearing from brands? What do they want?
Well, I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of attention on the environmental impact of single-use food service packaging, and that can't be overstated. But at the same time, we also have to remember why was single-use food service packaging, invented in the first place. And that was really to protect public health and making sure that you're able to provide prepared foods and beverages in a safe and sanitary manner. And so that continues. But when you start to see things like delivery, and delivery is not necessarily just by car, it might be bike or drone or robot or who knows what's coming down the pike, there's a lot more performance pressures on that. So, are you making sure that the packaging doesn't leak? Are you making sure that the items in the packaging still, the hot foods stay hot and the cold foods stay cold? And certainly one of the challenges that we're seeing more so these days are things like, are the fries staying nice and crispy? Because you want to make sure that the customer has the same experience, whether they're eating in the restaurant or in the comfort of their own home. And so from a performance standpoint, you see a lot of that. But there's also still that same concern or the question of, okay, well, I'm using a single-use item. What does that environmental impact look like? And so I think there's been a lot of discussion of how do you lessen that environmental impact while still being able to, afford the opportunity to provide those foods and beverages on the go.
What can you, since you're kind of on the inside there, what's underway to meet these needs and who's involved? Like, what's really new and exciting that's coming down as far as packaging?
Yeah, and I would say there are a couple of different things. So I think who's involved, I think we have seen over the years, a greater collaboration throughout the supply chain. So from the raw material suppliers, to the folks that are making the paper or the resin or whatever it happens to be, to the converter, to the distributor, to the food service operator, in this case, a QSR chain. We see a lot of collaboration up and down that supply chain happening, and that really then results in better products to meet the needs of both that operator but also their customers. So I think that is very beneficial. In terms of collaboration, I think the other thing to think about is from an environmental standpoint is how can we all work together, again, going back to that, how do you lessen that footprint? So things like, a number of years ago, you never saw any food service packaging that was made with recycled content. Today, you're seeing a growing number of items in the marketplace that are made with recycled content. And that's really the industry saying, hey, we want to make sure we're using less virgin materials and putting some of that recycled material back into our product and helping to close the loop. And that's something that happens when the QSR chain or whoever it is says, you know what, I'm willing to buy these materials because I know they're in the marketplace and it's the right thing for me to do for my sustainability goals. So I think that's certainly the case what we're seeing on the recycling side. From a composting side, which is another key area in terms of recovery for our products, we see more compostable options that are out in the marketplace that QSRs are able to to use, especially if they're looking for food waste diversion programs. So we're seeing a lot of attention on, you shouldn't be putting valuable resources in a landfill, whether that's packaging or whether that's food. And, could a QSR start using compostable packaging, couple that with its food waste, and send that to a composter? That's certainly better use of those resources than burying those.
It's creativity's time to shine, huh?
It is, and that's what's exciting to see. Again, we've been around for over 100 years, and the industry will continue to innovate to bring new materials into the marketplace to meet the demands of their customers.
Of all the restaurant categories, how much of the heat do you think QSR brands get about single use? I mean, are they taking the heavy load, the most of it?
I think they are, because they're the predominant user of food service packaging. So if you take a look at where food service packaging is used, it's certainly used in almost all food service outlets today, but to varying degrees. But given the business model for today's QSR operations, again, I mentioned roughly 70% of the foods and beverages leave the store. Well, that's then dependent on food service packaging. If you look at something like full service restaurants, where the majority of the customers are coming into the restaurants and sitting down, and really the only single use they're using is maybe a to-go container if they don't finish their meal, or if they're offering delivery, but the use of it is far less. And I think one of the things, because eating on the go is just part of our daily, very busy lives, I think there's a general impression that there's a lot more food service packaging out in the marketplace than there really is. It's interesting, because if you look at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, they collect data, and if you look at the data that they have, there's less than 2% of the material that's going into today's landfill as food service packaging. But if you ask most people, they would think that, landfills are 25, 30, 40, 50% with food service packaging, but that's simply not the case.
No kidding. I'm blown away by that. That's less than 2%, according to the EPA.
Yeah. That's correct. And it's, again, because so many consumers go out and they grab their coffee first thing in the morning. They might grab a snack later on. They're trying to take their kids off to soccer practice. They're grabbing something on the go. So it's a part of our daily lives, but we don't necessarily think about, while it's important to our daily lives, the broader impact and really the whole breadth of other materials that are in the marketplace right now.
Wow. I can't let you go today without asking you about, fungus-based packaging. I saw a video about it. I'm fascinated by it. What do you know about it?
So I have seen that being used predominantly more in the protective packaging space. So if you think about like foam polystyrene that might be wrapped around your televisions or other materials that are being shipped to you, I've seen it being used there, not necessarily in food service packaging, certainly not at this point. I think the other thing to think about is, particularly when you're talking about quick service restaurant chains, just the sheer volume and the massive supply chain that you have to feed is tremendous. So if you were to come up with some brand new packaging like fungus packaging, which of course you're always going to see new materials, and it's very exciting to see something like that, but is there enough in the marketplace to feed the marketplace? And it'll take time for many of these products to become commercially viable at the scale that you really need to see that.
I see. Well, okay, this is a little bit of a crystal ball question for you, but I'm hoping you can answer what you would hope to see, let's say, in 10 years at QSRs when it comes to packaging. What would be your big dream?
I think that if you think about the packaging that's used today, it's honestly very similar to what we've seen for the last couple of decades. I think we will continue to see some innovations, but to be honest with you, I think one of my biggest concerns these days is that whether there'll even be single-use packaging in QSRs. If you look at the legislative landscape, which we do follow at FPI here, one of the things that we're starting to see is more calls for reusable packaging. So, for example, earlier this year, Berkeley, California passed probably the most onerous piece of legislation we had ever seen. And in that case, as of July 1, 2020, any QSR restaurant serving customers in the store, they're going to have to use reusable mugs and ceramic plates and real silverware. Single use is not going to be allowed. So as there's growing attention on, the use of single-use items, I want to make sure that we're being able to continue to have that safe, sanitary delivery of prepared foods through single-use items.
Interesting. That gives us food for thought. Lynn, I appreciate it. Thank you for stopping in. You've kept us quite up to date on the status of things, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you very much, Shelley. And if I could put a little plug, FPI does offer a free membership for QSR brands. So if you're interested, please have them contact me.
You snuck that in on us. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Shelley.
All right, that just about does it for this week's show, but we'll be right back here 7 days from now to talk to a cool new dedicated delivery brand that emerged out of a third-party delivery provider's data. That's next week, right here. And until then, please have a terrific weekend and even better business in the week ahead.